be happening, where the CS Cabinet Secretary of Education, Amina Mohammed, will be opening up, of course, the papers this morning, and will be joined much later by our reporter in, of course, Mombasa, that is Kevin Mutai. And later on, further on the program, we're going, I should say, also to hear from Bernard Ojwang from Western Kenya. Also, he'll give us details of what will be happening as far as the KCSE examination is concerned. So they're all locked up and loaded. So make sure you keep your eyes peeled and keep out your ears this morning for what will be happening as far as KCSE is concerned. And of course, we pray for candidates this morning as they're going to sit for the exams. All the sheer dint of hard work they put in will come to bear today. But before we head there, let's see what is the good, the bad, and the ugly in our dailies today. We begin with the Daily Nation, and this is a splash today. A probing question, that is, on the front page of the Daily Nation. Is Uhuru war on graft in trouble? Is Uhuru war on graft or in trouble? That is what we have as a splash today. After high-profile arrests, a reality check for sleaze busters tussle. Tough wars between EACC and DCI, which are legally empowered to do the same job, are slowing down investigations as budget fights cause frustration in some agencies. And then there is the Wanjigi launch. That story, you can follow it on page 4 of the Daily Nation. Let's just find what it has to say about the Wanjigi launch there on page 4 of the Daily Nation today, just to give you a snippet of what they're saying there. I'm heading over there just to show you. Agencies clash over egos risk stalling war on corruption. Money seems to be at the heart of police grievances against graft agency, with claims of biased funding. Conflicts between investigating agencies are threatening to stagnate the war on corruption. Already there are subtle signs of endangered or engendered disarray in President Uhuru Kenyatta's campaign against economic crimes. Both the Directorate of Criminal Investigations and the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission have jurisdiction over economic crimes. You can follow this story, full gritty details, here on page 4 of the Daily Nation, where I'm reading all these mandates graft agency can probe and enforce. In June this year, the High Court ruled that EACC's mandate was not limited to enforcing the provisions of Chapter 6 of the Constitution, but also extended to investigating offences. This was after the Evans Kidero Foundation and the lobby group Kenya for Justice and Development Trust sought constitutional interpretation of the role of EACC vis-a-vis that of the police. You can follow this story here on page 4 of the Daily Nation today. Also on page 2 of the Daily Nation, or page 3, trader accuses his fiancée of fraud in property dispute. On September the 8th, Mr. Daniel Kimani Kariuki left his Fourways Junction home on Kiambu Road to meet his future in-laws and plan for brand price negotiation. The majority owner of Ridgeways in the yard was taken aback by his in-laws, digressing into how much wealth he had and how it was apportioned between him and his fiancée, their daughters, Sylvia Wamboi Karanja. You can read the rest of the story here on page 4 of the Daily Nation this morning. Right. Also, this is a telling story. 30 pregnant girls set to miss KCSE test. More than 30 Kenya Certificate of Secondary Education candidates in Narok County will not sit their examinations today due to early pregnancies and marriages. This adds to the number to over 60 cases of teenage pregnancies witnessed across the country after another 31 failed to sit for the Kenya Certificate of Primary Education examination last week. County Commissioner George Natembea has termed the trend as catastrophic and ordered quality assurance and standards of officers in the region to investigate the cases of pregnancies among schoolgirls. That is on page 2 of today's Daily Nation. Let's move on and see what we have on the front page of the Standard. After hosting Raila, Ruto off to Nyanza. After handshake, Ruto expected in Migori today, even as region's MPs declare they won't attend his function. But the bigger question is the possible connection between the two and the lunch DP hosted for Raila and Uhuru last week. This story continues on page 6 of the Standard this morning. Also, unbeatable world record holder in a woman-only marathon post imperious performance yet again. We have endurance here. Golden Girl Mary Keitany crosses the finish line first in the women's division of the New York City Marathon in New York yesterday. It was Keitany's fourth victory in 5 years at New York Marathon. Right, you have also this story continuing on the sports page inside the Standard. Also, what next for Central Kenya after Uhuru exit? That's the probing question. It continues on page 4 of the Standard this morning. Political direction: 4 years to end of president's final term. Region has not identified successor, and this has set many local leaders on edge. Also, extension of cost for flight incentives gives hope to hotels is on the business segment, page 26 of the Standard this morning. Let's see what we have on the front page of the Star. A quick look at the Star this morning, what it is holding for us. This is what you're waking up to this morning. Raila allies alarmed by Ruto Nyanza tour. We go to Governor Obado to host DP today as ODM MPs vow to boycott. John Badi and Junet Mohammed accuse DP of exploiting handshake deal. And it says that MPs allied to opposition leader Raila Odinga yesterday warned that Deputy President William Ruto's Nyanza development tour could ignite tensions and undermine the handshake. The tour begins today. The politicians led by ODM chairman John Badi and his Suna East counterpart Junet Mohammed said Ruto was exploiting the tranquility created by the handshake pact to further his political agenda, a run for State House in 2022. You can follow the story inside the Star. And also here on the front page of the Star this morning, we can see Deputy President William Ruto and Senator Speaker Kenneth Lusaka taking tea and mandazi in a kiosk at Standard. This is actually Shianda Market, I should say, in Kakamega County. That was yesterday. Right, you remember that particular cup? That is the story that we have here that you can follow on page 4 and 5 of the Star. KCSE begins under tight security to prevent cheating. That story continues on page 2. Also, 2 selfie-taking students drawn in Yala Sachon. That is on page 3. World's largest silk producers to set up in Kenya on page 6. Granny asks CJ to end 40-year-old property dispute. That story on page 9 of the Star this morning. A quick look at the People Daily, and this is what you're waking up to this morning. Big shots named in Akasha FBI list. Crosshairs international watch list in drugs scam features 4 judges, 2 governors, top lawyers, former CS and prominent businessman who now face indictment. This story continues on page 4. Let's see if it can actually list some of his governors and the judges that they say top shots are named there, so that we can get to see what it says there. 13 bigwigs named in Akasha drug syndicate, persons at risk of being indicted by the foreign agencies include 4 judges, 2 governors, a top lawyer and MP. United States Drug Enforcement Administration and the Federal Bureau of Investigation could soon pounce on 13 Kenyan bigwigs allegedly named by self-confessed drug lords, the Akashas. That is a story that you want to see there. We can actually see. Okay, and just back there quickly, we want to just momentarily cross over to Mombasa, as I mentioned earlier, where we have the Cabinet Secretary, Ministry of Education, Amina Mohammed. She's now opening the examination papers, and we have our own Kevin Mutai on the ground actually to keep us apprised of what is happening. If we may cross over to Kevin Mutai right now to just maybe have an experience, a feel and flavor of what is happening this morning for them that are sitting for the examination. Let's just cross over there.
Well, thank you so much, Debarl, and we are live from Mombasa County at the County Commissioner's office here within the CBD, and you've just, as you can see, is here the Cabinet Secretary for Education, Amina Mohammed, is currently opening examination papers. Joining her is also Ababuna Mwamba, with also the Regional Commissioner, Bernard Lapar-Marai, to ensure that there's a smooth operation going on to the beginning of KCSE KCSE examination, of course, she's come out clearly to assure Kenyans and also candidates that this entire process of examination period will be peaceful and smooth, of course, with the government assuring us that there'll be proper security and, of course, warning those people who might come up with ways that they'll try to cheat in this particular exercise, that the government will catch up with them. Of course, remember that here in Mombasa, we just concluded the KCPE exams, and of course, we've experienced issues with the major concern also coming up is the issue of girls, or rather impregnated girls, who sat for the just concluded KCPE exams. Of course, we've also had cases of other members also, or rather other candidates sitting for this particular examination, that is KCSE. Of course, we've had reported cases of some of them who are pregnant, and of course we expect the CS to come up with measures. And of course, remember the other time she categorically stated that these are kids, and of course they're not supposed to be in hospital nursing babies. She came out clearly that the government will take stern action, and of course that is after she ordered for an investigation, an in-depth investigation into these particular cases. And of course she said that the Ministry of Education will come up with measures to ensure that such cases will not all be experienced in the near future. I'll ask my camera person Karim Rajan to just give you a picture of what's happening currently, and of course you can see that is CS Amina Mohammed leading the team, dispatching the examination papers, and of course the teachers here, their education stakeholders here, and of course they're getting the examination papers to be distributed to their respective schools. As also I can see that there's proper security in this particular place. Of course they're up and ready for this particular exercise. Remember, the KCSE begins today, and of course this is also another step that these particular candidates will be expecting to cross in order to get to the other level of education, that is to the universities. And of course remember that the education ministry is keen to ensure that this transition is also key, and assuring that all the candidates will also be able to advance in their education. Remember that the Ministry of Education also categorically stated recently that they will be able to help, or rather assure that there's smooth transition to for the KCPE candidates to also advance to secondary education, coming out clearly that this is an exercise that of course the local administration, those are chiefs and assistant chiefs, must ensure that all these candidates who sat for the just concluded KCPE candidates should be able to secure their places in high school, that is in secondary schools. Remember that also the Internal Security Cabinet Secretary Fred Matiang'i was here a couple of days ago, that is marking the beginning of the KCPE examination, of course reiterating clearly that the chiefs and their assistants should also work with the county commissioners and of course other administration, and with also the education stakeholders to ensure that there's smooth transition of these particular candidates to high school. And of course saying that since this particular program is free and offered by the government, is something of concern, and to ensure that all the players in the education sector must come up clearly to ensure that the smooth transition of these particular candidates to high school. Like I just said, if you're joining us now, let me just bring you up to speed, is the fact that Amina Mohammed, that is the CS Education, is here opening the examination papers in Mombasa. As you can see, those are the pictures coming to you live from the county commissioner's headquarters here in Mombasa, and Amina is yet to give a briefing of what we are expecting to see from this particular exercise. Remember that she's come out strongly that we really as a country need to ensure there's the credibility of examination in this country, saying that the government will make sure that the entire process of examination will go on smoothly, and of course without any cases of malpractices. Also the ministry assured Kenyans that of course they've sealed all the loopholes whereby the certain people will be trying to use them in order to leak these particular exams. But of course she said that there is no leakage of this particular exam, and this also of course saying that the ministry, the government has also dispatched all security measures to ensure that this particular exercise of examination examination, an entire period, of course, will end smoothly with no challenges, of course, with no examination malpractices, categorically stating that this is an exercise that will kick off from the entire country, with, of course, those regions from this particular coastal strip assured of their security. Remember, we've had insecurity cases, and of course in one of the regions, but the security officers have been dispatched to various schools to assure candidates of their security. And of course, we're expecting Amina Mohammed to come and talk to us. Of course, we'll have questions for her. How has the government, how has her ministry planned to ensure that this particular examination exercise will end smoothly? Remember that, of course, Debarl, in a couple of days, we've had cases whereby there's so many challenges of, if let me just brief our viewers that if you're joining us now, here in Mombasa County, we've had alarming cases of teenage pregnancies. Of course, this is of key concern, and we're expecting the ministry to come out clearly and, of course, outline measures and ways on how to take action against these people who impregnate teenage girls, and of course those who are sitting for their examination. Remember, the current Ministry of Education under the charge of Amina Mohammed is very strong on this matter, and is saying the ministry says that it has ordered proper investigation, called on various investigative agencies in the country to come up with ways to ensure that these culprits, the perpetrators, are taken to book. And of course, it is wrong. Indeed, it is very wrong to have candidates sitting for their examination papers in maternity wards. And of course, we have counties in this particular place that have been ranked up high in these cases. Remember, recently I also did a story from Kilifi County whereby there was an alarming rate of KCPE candidates who sat for the examination, the KCPE examination, while of course pregnant. Some of them did their papers while in hospital, and of course it is a major concern, and of course it is something that, of course, as residents feel that leaders and other stakeholders from government need to sit together and ensure that this particular exercise goes on smoothly without such kind of cases. Of course, as you can see behind me is a contingent of security officers. Of course, they're ready, and of course with me here is, as you can see, this is the regional commissioner, and I'm very sure that he's ready to dispatch his colleagues for this particular exercise. Let me just have a few words with him and just to get how ready they are for this particular exercise. Thank you, sir. Just tell us, how planned are you to ensure that there's smooth beginning of this particular KCP examination?
Thank you very much. I think you can see here we have our officers to secure these exams. From the beginning, we've been securing the container from the beginning. We have people here 24/7. And we have also people here who are going to work over that period when the exams are ongoing. We are prepared. We've been prepared for a while now, waiting for the exams. You see, you've done KCP very, very well, with no incidences. So we hope this one will also, we've learned a few lessons, few experiences, and we continue improving on this. So we are ready across the region.
You are the coast security man. People see you as someone who's in charge of all the coastal counties. Of course, we have other far-flanked schools. Remember, in Kwale, in Lamu counties, Kwale counties, where of course we've had issues of insecurity, of people not being able to be, or rather students. Are you assuring that all the schools within the region will be secure, and of course security officials will be there to ensure that there's smooth beginning to the end, of course, of this examination period?
All the exams materials have reached their destination, 100%. So I also want to assure that security is 100% assured. So parents, children shouldn't have any problem. Security is in those places, and therefore there's no cause for any worry.
Any challenges so far?
Not so far. We don't have raid, we don't have insecurity in the region. The place is quite peaceful from Kiunga to Kwale, Lunga. Everything is okay, and we are set to go.
In terms of transportation of these particular examination papers,
No problem at all. No problem across across the region. There's no problem about transport. There's no problem about the management of it, the security of it, or the facilities there. Everything is okay. Yes.
so both land and in the air, the security officials can assure the candidates that they'll sit for the exams.
Everything is there. If there's any emergency, of course, there are contingency plan for that.
Do we have schools in islands?
We have a school in Lamu, Fasa, Racini, Pate, who are taking the exams. So there's no problem about that. The exams are already in place.
So you're wishing the candidates all the best.
All the best. We want them to do their best. What we want to question or warn those who are managing the exams in their centers is to be a bit careful, because you know the implication of this. Usually when the exams leaks, it's not because they just leak like that. It's people who are leaking the exam or allowing those mischiefs to happen in those schools. But we have a security with clear instructions. We have the regional security committee here with me. They are going around. We have the Ngao, national government, Ngao, the assistant chief, the chiefs, everybody, the SCCs, the DCCs, county commissioner, and all of us. And of course, the minister. We're going to monitor, supervise, and see that this thing is happening without any interruption.
We've had issues of teenage pregnancies, which is also affecting this particular education sector and, of course, the future of our children. What is your take on that?
It's very, very unfortunate that we have young girls, our girls as young as 14, 15, getting pregnant. It's very unfortunate because it affects, of course, their performance. It affects their, the reading, and it's quite unfortunate. And as you have heard the Minister for Education the other day, a statement that we're going to go on these fellows or these fellows who are doing this, but we also want to discourage this business of disco matangas, things like coalition between those fellows who put these girls in the family way on notice that we will not allow you to go just scot-free for that. But normally what happens is the parent and those other parties sit down and agree on this. So most of it is not reported to the police.
But of course, the Ministry of Education has come out clearly to warn parents who are colluding with these perpetrators to settle this matter out of court. We've had incidences or other reports from some of the regions claiming that that we've had laxity in security from security officials to arrest these particular perpetrators. What can you say about that?
It's unfortunate that some parents are given some money to keep quiet, not report to the police. But anybody who is going with a school child, you will not take it as a consent, because there's no consent there. That's actually defilement. So defilement is criminal, is serious crime. So we will be using those kind of acts, the law, to punish these people. Yes.
Thank you so much. That was the Regional County Commissioner Bernard Laparmarai, of course, assuring the candidates that they will be able to sit through their examination period peacefully. And of course, I can see that the Cabinet Secretary, Amina Mohammed, is ready to give us a briefing. And of course, we're excited to, there is the sound from the Ministry of Education. Of course, let's just listen in to what she has to say concerning how the ministry is prepared for this particular examination period.
Yeah, we're ready. And, we've begun. It's all systems go now, and we're happy with the way that we have started here in Mombasa. I think by the time that we will finish so much earlier than when they're supposed to start the exams, so they'll be able to get all their students in, the candidates come before the exams start. So I'm really happy that I started so well. I'm here with my colleague, the CS, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Ababu Namamba, who has come to also support the process. As you know, we are all out, the whole government is literally out. All my colleagues, CSs, CSs, PSs, out in the country, just trying to make sure that we're all doing the right thing, but also support our children and the teachers. And so we don't expect any issues, any hitches. I think we've all been preparing for it. We're all trained to do this. The packages are they're very well titled, right? And so I don't expect to have any issues today. It's rolled off across the country, and I think you know that we have others, right? We have, I know CS Rashid is around Vihiga and Kisumu, and others are in other places. And so we look forward, to a smooth exercise, supportive of our education system and our children. Thank you very much. You want to say something?
Madam CS, maybe before Ababu speaks, we've had challenges of teenage pregnancies in this coastal region, and we've had the ministry coming out clearly on the stand to try and address such kind of issues. What can you just tell the coastal region concerning the matter?
I think it's very sad that we have teenage pregnancies in our country today, right? So many years after independence, and it's really sad too that those that we are supposed to protect, we don't protect, and we allow them, right, to be exposed to elements that they're too early, right, to get involved in or to be exposed to. And so you heard me speak about it. The numbers were many, right? And today we've also yesterday we had an incident in Wajir where a teacher has been arrested, right? So it's something that's happening right across the country. Other, agencies have carried out, and you probably heard that in the news, they have reported on this. We have agreed that we'll all work together. I've put a team at the ministry together to start the exercise, and along the way we'll bring everybody in. We are working on a policy as government on teenage pregnancies in schools, and we'll roll it out at an appropriate time. But I think it's really sad, and I was just urging everybody when I spoke last and appealing that we really protect these children, right? If we have this crisis today, it just means that our country is not going to be in safe hands going forward. We are also telling these children, that we're irresponsible as adults. Because in most cases it's adults, that are doing this to the children. So we're being very, very irresponsible. Rape is rape in any language, right? Defilement is defilement in any language. It's a crime, and I think the law will take its course. Whenever a culprit is found, the law will take its course. I also said that we are going to follow up and see whether we can actually identify who carried out, these criminal acts and deal with them. So it's something, I think it's a conversation that we must have as a country. We must have this conversation. We cannot bury our heads in the sand. It's happening to our children, it's happening to our sisters, it's happening to even our young brothers, right? We are not going to let it go. It's something that we have sunk our teeth in. It's not going to go away. We will deal with
it. Education is the anchor of any society, and of course the integrity of exams is critically significant for the sanctity of any examination. And first of all, I really want to applaud the model that has been adopted by CS Sabina at the Ministry of Education. And everybody can feel the renewed confidence in our examination system, the renewed confidence in our education system. This is important because this is not just important for our national development, this is also important for our image globally. I am at Foreign Affairs, and it's significant that Waziri Amina is actually a child of Foreign Affairs. That's where she has grown up for like 30 years. And I know as well as she does that all over the world, our citizens are all over the world. They're looking for jobs, they're looking for scholarships. And it is difficult when you go around the world as you represent Kenya in various fora to be questioned about the integrity of the exams of this country. Because we are all over the place. We are looking for scholarships for our young people. We are looking for job opportunities for our youth. And you don't want to be encumbered in that process by questions about the integrity of our exams. So it is very, very important that the sanctity, the integrity of our exams is above board. And that's where we are here. That's where we have answered the call of CS Amina at Education, that we all put our hands on the deck. And all government is in this, all the way from His Excellency the President, the Deputy President, and we are being asked to stand in single column to assist in this process. And what I've witnessed here this morning, I have witnessed the opening of the container. I have personally cut the security seals of the packaging of the exams. And I'm very confident that up to this point, the integrity of these exams cannot be questioned. So if anything happens, then it would be individual culpability. Those who have been given the responsibility to handle this examination material, to administer this exam, and to make sure that our children are doing these exams in a conducive environment. So I have actually seen integrity, and I want to urge those that have been given the responsibility to supervise these exams, maintain the integrity that we have witnessed this morning. And at the end of the day, remember, we are dealing with the future of our children. I want to wish all the KCSE candidates well, and I want to especially tell the girls, you have so many role models, starting with your own minister. If you're looking for a role model who has worked hard, who has remained diligent, who has walked the narrow path of commitment and discipline, look at your own Cabinet Secretary Amina Mohammed and aspire to walk the same path and succeed and serve your country. And we all wish you well, and we stand by you. Thank you very much.
Well, of course, that was Amina Mohammed, the CS for Education, and the Chief Administrative Secretary from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Ababuna Mwamba. Of course, they just witnessed the opening of the container. And of course, Debarl, I'm sure they'll be going to various schools from the coast region, and we will be with them and will keep you updated on the happenings from this coastal region about the beginning of the KCSE exams from this particular place. Back to you, Debarl, in studio.
Many thanks indeed, Kevin Mutai from Mombasa there. Thank you for keeping us apprised this morning on what is happening. And of course, we wish the KCSE candidates all our best wishes this morning. But we are not done yet. We want to cross over now to Western Kenya in the Rongo sub-county, where also Bernard Ojwang is standing by just to give us a feel and flavor of what is happening in Rongo this morning. Bernard, over to you. We can see you, and of course, we can see the container behind you is already opened. Kindly bring us up to speed.
Well, thank you very much, Debarl. We are here in Migori County, Rongo Sub-County, to be precise. As you can see behind me, this process started very in the morning at around 6 a.m. in the morning, and all security officers, education officers in this sub-county were here as early as 5:30 p.m. And according to Kenya National Examination Council, NEC, a total of 1.6 million candidates will be sitting for their theory papers starting today, and that process that will end on the 28th of this month. And what's going on here? It is exactly around 6:31 a.m. in the morning, and as you can see, all 31 centers.
Right, many thanks indeed, Bernard Ojwang, but technical challenges there this morning. We'll try and reconnect there with Bernard Ojwang. That is a technical failure, of course, with the airwaves. But in the meantime, I was actually showing you what we do have in the dailies today, and our panelists are already here. We shall be also giving you a snippet of what happened in New York yesterday as far as the marathon is concerned. But of course, you've seen also this, what the CS has been raising, which is such a concern right now. 30 pregnant girls set to miss KCSE tests. That is what we have also in the Daily Nation today. More than 30 Kenya Certificate of Secondary Education candidates in Narok County will not sit their examinations today due to early pregnancies and marriages. This adds to the number to over 60 cases of teenage pregnancies witnessed across the county after another 31 failed to sit for the Kenya Certificate of Primary Education examinations last week. Also, a quick look at what is happening across the region as well. That is the Daily Nation. I showed you the Standard, the Star, the People Daily. We want to see also what is on the front page of the Business Daily before we cross over now to the region. We have ARM sinks deeper after 21.3 billion shillings factory write-off is what is on the front page of the Business Daily. Crunch collapse, cement firms net assets or asset value goes negative after Tanzania plant wipeout. This story continues on page 4 of the Business Daily. Bankers see dark days ahead for the shilling. The Kenya shilling will weaken in the next 12 months, bankers said, citing pressure from ongoing rise in import bill, in line with continuing increase in crude prices and the knock-on effect of improving economy that is expected to spark consumer demand. You can follow this story on page 4. Also, remember today is when now the US-Iran sanctions are being imposed. How will that also affect the prices of the shilling? That is yet to be seen. We also will be keeping an eye on that. KRA gives tax defaulters 15 days to pay up. Right. The Kenya Revenue Authority has served notices to thousands of tax defaulters, asking them to pay up outstanding penalties within a fortnight or face aggravated penalties and interest on amounts due. Please, they say, make payments within 15 days, failure to which the amounts will attract collection enforcement measures. The taxman warned in letters sent out in the past 2 weeks. The notices came even as some taxpayers complained that they were being targeted despite having filed their returns on time and did not have any outstanding dues, raising the prospects of disputes with the taxman. And this story continues on page 4 of the Business Daily today. Also, tourism boom. Some of the 250 Polish tourists who arrived at Mombasa International Airport yesterday on a lot charter flight. It was the airline's maiden flight to Kenya and will be flying to Mombasa twice a week. That is what we have on the front page of the Business Daily. Let's look at the ticker there. Safaricom renews push for license. Safaricom says it will seek answers from the telecoms regulator over the 3-year delay in issuance of its digital broadcast license. Chief Executive Bob Collymore has said, of course, they want to start the Safaricom TV. And this story continues on page 7 of the Business Daily. And 7.4 billion shillings, that is the amount that the National Lands Commission official says should be paid to SGR Phase 2 landowners instead of inflated figures. Okay, and we want also to see what we have on the front page of other dailies. Let's see, I promise across the region, this is what we have on the front page of A Citizen in Tanzania. If you're waking up in Tanzania, how Iran sanctions could hit Tanzania. The decision by the US to reimpose sanctions against Iran is among a number of factors that could push up oil prices in the global market, with the repercussions being felt by importers including Tanzania. That story continues on page 2. Saudi Arabia is the world's biggest exporter of crude oil, and the Khashoggi crisis might lead to further sanctions which could or would affect 0.5 to 10% of global oil demand. This is what we have on the front page of The Citizen in Tanzania. Also looking back at Magufuli's 3 years in office. It is exactly 3 years today since John Pombe Magufuli was sworn in as the 5th president of Tanzania, of the United Republic of Tanzania. You can follow the full report on page 4 of The Citizen in Tanzania. John Pombe Magufuli's appeal to religious institutions. President John Pombe Magufuli has asked religious institutions to preach peace, unity and solidarity for the country to realize its development objectives. The head of state also hailed, and it continues on page 2. It will leave me hanging, so let me just rush over there. I don't have it actually, but you can grab a copy of The Citizen. He also says, I also ask for your prayers. Don't leave me on my own. We all know how challenging this job is. And you can see a related picture here. John Pombe Magufuli with retired President Benjamin Mkapa, should say, when the Catholic Church marked 150 years of its existence in Tanzania in Bagamoyo yesterday. That is what we do have That is what we have there. Let's see what we have on the front page of Mwananchi. Serikali yajitenga na Makonda. That is what we have on the front page of the Mwananchi. And let's see what we have also on the front page of the Daily Monitor in Uganda. I'm trying to just pick it up quickly for you so that you can see what we have also on the front page of Daily Monitor in Uganda. Records of buyer of closed banks vanish. Investigations show that the central bank sourced the now defunct Nile River Acquisition Company registered in Mauritius to buy the assets and liabilities in the sale of the banks. This story continues on page 4 of the Daily Monitor in Uganda. Lastly, because of interest of time, we can't show you all the dailies today. Let's cross over to the New Times in Rwanda. Agasiro Development Fund grows to over 52 billion shillings Rwandan francs. That is a story that you want to follow also on page 2. And we can see here First Lady attending Car-Free Day. First Lady Jeanette Kagame is joined by Dr. Diane Gashumba, the Minister for Health, Esperance Nyira Safari, the Minister for Sports and Culture, and Marie Chantal Rwakanzina, the Mayor of City of Kigali, during the Car-Free Day exercise that took place on Sunday morning. The bi-monthly exercise that brings together hundreds of people is organized to promote health living among the city residents. So you don't get to ride your car, but you walk. That is the essence of this particular exercise. You can follow the story also inside the New Times in Rwanda. And lastly, let's see what the East African is holding for us this week. China to sell off African debt, gives us more loans. This is all about securitization. Hong Kong Mortgage Corporation to take over existing loans and repackage them. And you can follow this story on page 4 of the East African. Also, can KQ keep the New York route aloft? That is a probing question. And Kenya's flight KQ-02 touchdown at the John F. Kennedy Airport in New York on October the 20th, making it the 5th African carrier serving the U.S. market. Its managers and Kenya government officials were hoping that the experiment with the Delhi flight will yield positive returns on a route that has been rated as a low revenue earner with a high load factor. You can follow the rest of the details here on page 12. You can grab a copy of the East African. Right, we want to see also on a lighter note how Kenya performed in New York. And of course, we blame remiss if we don't really celebrate that. And Mary Keitany is the 2018 New York Marathon champion, winning her 4th title as the Big Apple in a time of 2 hours, 22 minutes and 52 seconds ahead of compatriot and 2018 London Marathon champion Vivian Cheruiyot. Keitany regained her title. She won in 2014. of what is happening as far as the KCSE examinations is concerned today. We had technical challenges there, but as soon as we have that reconnected, we can get back to you. But we'll keep you apprised during the day of what is happening as far as the exams are concerned. Allow me to introduce our guests this morning who are already here in the studio. They've been here up and early, and I've kept them for quite a while. We have with us Richard Onyonka, who is Member of Parliament from KCSE. Yeah, I'm slow this morning. Yeah, and also we do have with us a Member of Parliament, the former Member of Parliament of Makueni. This is Kambado Wakabando. Good morning, sir.
Morning to you.
Also the former Senator of Muranga. This is Balozi Kembi Gitura. We do have with us Senator Kongo Mugini from Nyamira County. Also, Dr. Shemo Chodho is a global leader of Kenya Diaspora Alliance. Let's just begin with what is on the front page of a Daily Nation. And we shall begin with you, Richard Onyonka there. Looking at what is on the front page of a Daily Nation as far as the fight of corruption is concerned, for a while we've been trying to launch this boil of corruption in the country, and it seems it is very elusive. Yes. We see maybe when we have the New Year resolution, also we have a new angst and a new, of course, sort of bitterness from the government in clamping down corrupt leaders as well. But that seems to taper off as the year tends to wind down. And this is a probing question that we have on the front page. Is Uhuru war on graft in trouble?
Well, thank you, Debarl. To be honest with you, I would say yes and no. I would say yes from the perspective that when you look at this story, the truth is, even in Parliament, these issues have been brought and we have discussed them. And many members of Parliament are very uncomfortable with the modus operandi of the ESCC.
Yes.
For the simple reason that we have had cases where the ESCC has left a lot to be desired. In some of the cases, they come up with the big headlines, they discuss so and so has stolen so much,
yes,
so and so and so needs to, the public needs to know that this is the money that is being pilfered or misused. But you wait for them to have a prosecution and a conviction, and it never comes. So here you are, where ESCC is saying the money which they've got is actually an entitlement to them for them to do a better job than they've been doing. I can tell you that because I'm in the budget committee, actually the only reason why we allocated the money, and I'm speaking individually and not on behalf of the committee, the only reason why we gave that money to them is because they are supposed to be buying a new building where they're supposed to be shifting to. When you look at the performance of the DCI has actually done much, much better in terms of the cases they have taken to court, even when the cases are currently
yes,
taking place, and we wouldn't even give them merit or demerit. I think to me there needs to be clarity between the role of ESCC and the role of DCI and the role of the other institutions of government, so that then we can know who investigates and who prosecutes. I think there's a convoluted mix-up between whether ESCC should investigate and hand over the file to DCI, and that's what many members of Parliament actually would wish for. And there are others who are saying, no, let them take over, investigate and prosecute. But one, the reason why the ESCC has never been very successful in prosecuting many of the cases is because, one, they have got challenges in terms of the personnel, the very highly qualified investigative officers are not working for ESCC because most of them don't get remuneration which would keep them there. They don't have very good lawyers in their team. And yet, really, if you look at the DCI, the DPP, he's actually got the capacity now, and many in the House feel that we need to give the DPP more capacity and not ESCC.
All right. Let's say from Wakabando, why is the word corruption waxing and waning? Why don't we have an even keel, maybe, of that particular vigor being sustained throughout?
I think it's good to look at the positive side. And I would say that there has been a good focus in the recent past, more specifically since the last general election.
Yes.
The office of the Director of Public Prosecutions, Bwana Nordin Haji, has been acclaimed to do much, much better than the previous regime in the SIM. The office of the DCI under Mr. Kinoti also has been positively identified by many. If you look at the correspondences and comments and feedback generally in the media, social and mainstream, I think the weakest link has always been EACC. And this is not specifically about the current occupant of the office.
Yes.
It is since its establishment. I think we had it wrong from the very beginning. So successfully, from the pioneer to the second occupant to the third occupant, the question has always been, we have hot files, and I think there's so much investment of politics in ECC. That's my take. I've been in Parliament before, and we have addressed this matter. At one time, I remember when we had the restructuring of EACC at the board level, and in the 10th Parliament, a question came in the Parliament, and the people started trivializing, making it an ethnic agenda. And I remember it was very difficult for the committee in charge, and then Abdikadir Mohammed, to push it forward. So the matter was pedded to the next Parliament. So in the 11th Parliament, we revisited. When you brought the matter before the House, I remember rising on the floor to say, let us not just look at the board, let us look at the secretariat. And some members rose and accused some of us, and personally I was actually being accused of targeting small communities. Yes. Because we are asking that the secretariat be restructured, because that came in the wake of the 175 names that had been presented to the president. The president, the State of the Nation address, gave that report which listed the cabinet secretaries, parastatal chiefs, and the principal secretary, and so on. And then almost a year later, we saw the president complaining when there was a governance and ethics conference at State House. And he was asking the secretariat, you have put me in this mess because I've made a lot of political enemies. Some people are very angry with me because I've suspended them, and then there's no way. I would say, unlike my brother Richard here, Onyonka, that is not a question of pay. Compared to other Kenyans, the officers at TSCC get good pay. Teachers are performing in primary schools. Workers are cleaning the city here, the small pay. Okay, comparative. These guys have cars, they have house allowances, they have medical covers. It's a question of the institutional goodwill and leadership. So they say political meddling is one, and secondly, the leadership itself. And well, let's wait and see. But I would say I think the war on corruption is on course. Right. I'm very optimistic.
Kemi Gitura, is it on course? Do you think it's on course? We have the polygraph tests that were to be done. We had people, of course, being investigated and them to declare their wealth. We've not been given any update on that, unless it's happening quietly.
You see, war on corruption is not an event.
Yes.
It's a process. And I don't think we've done badly. What we're waiting for are results at the moment. And you must remember, I think it was Judge Aaron Ringera, who was one of the stars of the anti-corruption, who said that corruption fights back. It's obvious. I mean, corruption fights back. And corruption will do anything and everything possible so that it is not put on the dock. And I believe that's what is happening. When you start seeing this kind of tough wars between EACC and DCI, then you know something is afoot. You know that somebody is trying to take on the other one. You know that corruption is fighting back. And I have said on this show, and I continue saying it, that I'm very happy and impressed by what is happening at the DCI currently, and also at the DPP's office. Because what Nordin Haji is doing, what Kinoti is doing, has not been seen to be done before. All we want to see is that now that they have brought so many people, to the halls of justice, to the courts, what are we going to get out of it, right? But I would not want to see this war derailed by things like what you are seeing on the headlines of the Nation today about budget, about money.
Yes.
EACC appears to have done very little, if you ask me, to fight corruption. And maybe a day will come sooner than later when EACC itself will be investigated on matters of corruption, people in the EACC. Maybe a day will come sooner than we expect, because we hear a lot of things happening at the EACC. We see a lot of things happening at the EACC. We see people arrested, and it's quite obvious, at least to the people, to the naked eye, to us who are watching, that that person, there must be something, a prima facie case against him. But going to the EACC, we see them going around those revolving doors, coming out through the revolving doors, and then we are told nothing happens. For me, these are the things we need to be told about. EACC needs to give us a record of what it's done and what it's hoping to achieve. But in the meantime, I want to encourage the DCI and the ODPP to continue doing what they are doing, not to be derailed by these sideshows, because these are sideshows. Let them finish what they have to finish. Let heads roll, because I'm on record as saying that the Kenyan, Wanjiku, is waiting very anxiously. And Wanjiku wants to be convinced that we are not just, it's not just musical chairs. She wants to be convinced that some blood is going to, that she's going to see blood. You know, she's not just going to hear that people are taken to court. Then it takes another 10, 12 years before nothing happens. Yes. And people die when they are still waiting to get the results of their cases. This is what we don't want to see. And that is why I've said about in election petitions, which some people here have gone through, the law states clearly that they must be determined within, say, 6 months, right? I don't know. I'm not in parliament now. I may not know these things. Why can't we have corruption cases, NYS, all these other cases we are hearing about, there being a law that says they must be determined within a certain period of time, a conviction, acquittal, whatever the case, so that we have satisfaction and we have closure, instead of them going through so many years, and like we saw with the Anglo leasing and all those other cases, that people forgot about them. Because it is that dragging that people then say, we are not going to wait on this. This is nonsense. I mean, nothing is going to happen. These are just shows that we are going through. Kenyans want to see now, here and now, that corruption is a serious war. And I want to believe myself that corruption is a serious war, and that our heads are going to roll, and people are going to jail, and that people who think they can play around with infrastructure, like the one we are hearing are stealing equipment from the standard gauge railway. Yes. That when the president said they are going to be taken, that is going to take very, very stern action against them. Thank you. That this is going to happen. This is the day I'm waiting to see, and I'm waiting to see it with bated breath, because if we don't fight corruption, then corruption is going to finish all of us.
Fantastic. Maybe before we take a short break, we can hear also from the former chair of EACC. This is Okongo Mogedi. Yeah, you served at some point as the chair of the EACC, and looking at what is happening, maybe your insider can give us a sneak peek of what is happening right now, the tug of war between the DCI and the EACC, and if at all, this particular war on corruption is yielding any fruit so far.
Yeah, thank you, Debarl. I think speaking as a Kenyan who is watching, I must say that for the first time, the war against corruption has really shaken the fibre of this country. And I think we are seeing a situation where people sitting in offices are worried that either the DCI may come knocking, or EACC may come knocking. So that's a good thing, and I think we should ensure that that spirit continues. But Debarl, corruption is a phenomenon that is being fought from the global level. It's not just something that is a war that is fought just by one country called Kenya. The UN itself, if you read the UN Convention Against Corruption, obligates member states, Kenya included, and I think we became signatories in 2003, to set up dedicated bodies to spearhead the war against corruption. That's why in 2003, Kenya set up the Kenya Anti-Corruption Commission. It's not just that it's something we wanted to do as a country. We were responding to an obligation that is international in nature. Now, if you come back to the African continent, Again, the African Charter Against Corruption obligates state parties to set dedicated bodies that should spearhead the war against corruption. That's why you see in Kenya we have Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission dedicated to spearhead the war against corruption. Now, where we didn't get it right is when we were enacting the new constitution, we were, and I think Wakina Kabando and Kempi Kitura, those I think were in parliament at that time, we did not set up an anti-corruption body that was mirrored as the only body that should spearhead the war against corruption. I think there was a mix, some saying that body should only fight ethical issues, while we strengthen the police, make it independent, allow the DCI to be appointed in an independent manner, using a board and not the president, so that it is strengthened and it becomes independent away from the executive. Now, what I'm seeing is not a very healthy thing. We should not have a fight between two government agencies that should be doing the same thing. And I think going forward, this country needs to decide. If we want the police through the DCI to be the agents that is fighting corruption, then let's amend the constitution and say corruption will be fought by the DCI. If on the other hand, we want that war to be waged by EACC, then let's tell the DCI that issues of corruption will be fought by the EACC. Remember Debarl, we have an act of parliament, one act of parliament that EACC uses to, take people to court, charge them with corruption offenses. The DCI, on the other hand, is also using the same piece of legislation to investigate offenses and recommend to the DPP people to be charged in court. Now there is a problem there, because if you read the EACC Act under Section 35, I believe, before the DPP takes any action, he must receive a written report from EACC. Now, I don't know what is the legal framework the DCI is operating under.
Thank you.
And before I conclude, I think there are some cases pending in court that seeks to have a constitutional interpretation between these two bodies, the DCI and the EACC. Finally, Debarl, this country, you have seen what's happening on our national examination. And it is a moral question that we should all do self-examination. Now, if we can, bring almost everything to a standstill because our children are doing exams, we are telling the whole world that we are fearing our children are going to steal standard 8 kids. Now today you are seeing Form 4s are doing exam, and you are telling the whole world that we are fearing these guys are going to steal exam. What kind of country are we building, really?
Good question.
So I think there is a question of us looking at the moral fiber of this country and change the way we do things.
Thank you. Yeah. Right. On that note, let's take a station break right now. When we circle back, we continue the conversation. Of course, also today is a big day for people of Migori. The Deputy President will be touring that particular county. What does it portend politically? Does it move the needle a jot in any way as far as 2022 politics is concerned? And of course, also we have reactions on Twitter. I'll just read one or two before we take a station break. Wanjiku Mugane, she's saying, institutional goodwill and leadership lacks in almost all government parastatals. Everybody is always on the lookout for loopholes in the financial department to benefit himself or herself. Also, we have here Peter Gitai Wanjira. He's congratulating Keitani there. May she live to get a world record that will be hard for someone else to break, he says. Also, Jacob Abere Mtalala is saying it is time. EACC Kenya radical surgery need to be done on Secretariat as a matter of urgency and emergency, and it needs no rocket science, he says. Also, Osman Ali Sorcha, corruption is fighting back. I don't think it will go far. More arrest and no prosecution. Corruption is everywhere. National and county government. Marsabit County Land Survey is most corrupt in this county, he says. And lastly, Bishop of Hope, anyone can stay the same. It takes courage to change. And that is what Bishop of Hope is saying. We take a station break right now. When we circle back, we look at what is happening as far as the political front is concerned. Also harking back to last week, what happened as far as politics is concerned. This is the point. We take a station break right now. Welcome back. You're watching This is a Point here on AM Live. We continue with the conversation with the panelists. I'm holding court this morning with Senator Kembe Gitura, who is a former senator of Murang'a. Also with me is Kabano, who is the former member of parliament of Mukruene. We have also a member of parliament from Kitutu Church. This is Richard Onyonka, also the senator of Nyamira County. This is Okongo Mogini, and Dr. Shem Ochodo, who is a global leader of Kenya Diaspora Alliance. The conversation is still on corruption, even as we hear from Dr. Shem Ochodo on this. Briefly, you agree with what also the other panelists are saying in terms of the tug of war between the DCI and the EACC. Where will be the clarity? This is a matter still in court.
Debarl, every well-meaning Kenyan would compliment the government for the effort being made to stamp graft. But what worries me perhaps more than anything else is when it looks like, one, it's being politicized, two, when it looks like it's being selective, then we're not very likely to achieve the desired result. I don't want to go into details, but I would want every Kenyan to feel comfortable that, look, everybody, wherever there is culpability, there is due process takes place, no matter how high or low, no matter how politically correct or incorrect somebody is. That's the first point I wanted to make. One of my colleagues talked about political meddling. I think this is an issue that we need to critically look at. I keep asking, we have the Revenue Authority, KRA, but do we have an expenditure authority? I am informed that the controller of budget perhaps is the person to play that role. This past week, I was privileged to get to know that in terms of its function of monitoring how government budget is spent, there's probably just one officer. Then I'm asking, can that person really audit the expenditure? We know that last year we budgeted, whether it's 3 trillion or so on, and we know that 85% of it was used by the national government. Do we know how well that money was utilized? I know the Auditor General does its work, but the Auditor General's function is more post-mortem like. It's like 2-3 years later. It's the controller of budget that I think Parliament needs to give capacity to audit so that money that's spent, we be sure that if it's on roads or whatever infrastructure was actually spent. Secondly, related to that is auditing at the county levels. I was also shocked to learn that the governors actually, in a way, appoint the internal auditors. They don't do so directly, but through the public service boards. My recommendation would be that I think the controller of budget, whose function is oversight of government expenditure, both at national as well as county, should have that mandate so that the internal auditors are directly responsible to them. Finally, Debarl, in as much as John Gakuo, and my empathies to condolences to the family, I think we must appreciate that even criminals have rights. Even prisoners have rights. I think people need to go, the concerned bodies need to go deeper to find out. I would have not minded if John Gakuo died in hospital. Why did he die? I think we need to play, justice demands equity on both sides.
Right. And of course, that is another story that we need to follow. Justice demands both sides. We have the picture of John Gakuo, who passed on last week. If you did not, of course, you were not aware about that particular news. Of course, he passed on at Nairobi Hospital last week. And he was in the slumbers because of issues of corruption, as it is alleged. But the one particular thorny issue that was raised was the fact that John Gakuo maybe was, a culprit of the upper reaches of powers.
A little
and he was a fall guy.
Correction.
Yeah.
He didn't. It's reported that he was pronounced dead on arrival at hospital, so he didn't die at the hospital.
All right. Let's hear from Richard.
Thank you. Debarl, I want to just raise two issues very, very quickly. Issue number one, look at the way EACC operates. If you look at today's paper, and about 3 weeks ago, they bring a story, they say how Governor Bado has actually taken money to Australia with his children, he has gone for gambling with that money. And yet, all this information that is coming out from EACC is information which is not coming out from a court hearing. We don't have a trial here. Now the question that you ask is, why is EACC bringing out this information out to the public, and basically, because we assume Obado is innocent until proven guilty. So why are you bringing this information and putting it out there and discussing it when you have not taken him to court, when you have actually not gotten even witnesses who would testify, or any evidence you have would definitely come out in court? That's question number one. And that is why we have always had questions about EACC. And you will find, I will raise this issue in Parliament. You'll find members of Parliament say they'll bring you a name, say how you have stolen money, which you haven't. They don't even consider options of, for example, having a negotiated agreement between you who's accused or even some of your witnesses, which the DCI is doing very, very well. Because even the DPP is now coming and having, within the framework of trying out all these cases, it is much easier to get a conviction if you can negotiate with some of the witnesses to turn out to be state witnesses. Now here we are, Obado is accused, he's being on the paper, not in court. All right, that is item number one. Number two, I actually wanted to clarify a little point that my brother Kabando raised. I'm not saying that the officers who work for the DCI, EACC, and the DPP are not given enough money. No. The money that all these officers are getting is commensurate to their performance, and is commensurate. And I will tell you this, when you go to the Auditor General's office, Parliament has actually increased money for the audit office to continue and improve their capacity so that they can be able to do forensic audits and present this to the necessary bodies like EACC, DCI, and the DPP. Number two, the last one is, as far as I'm concerned, yes, we need to improve capacity. I don't think the issue is really money like my brother Kabando has said. What I'm saying is this: if you want to get the best results in prosecutions, then let us get the best qualified legal minds to be hired by this office. All right? So that when you have a case which is presented in court, then good lawyers or state prosecutors will interrogate, will prosecute, and finally get convictions. Otherwise, many of the officers who were hired by the DPP 3 years ago actually left that office because their salaries were reduced. All right? And this is what we have been saying in Parliament, that yes, we need to increase capacity, make sure you hire the best. Let us get students who've got first-class honors, who have gone to Kenya School of Law, who can come and prosecute cases and win those cases.
Right, Kabando.
Yes, one to two things. One is the political goodwill as a factor to redressing governance issues in this country. Whatever is happening today is because His Excellency the President, Uhuru Kenyatta, has made it his agenda to crack down on graft. And indeed, in the 9 points in the communique on the handshake, ending corruption is one of them. And if you look at the other related issues, ending ethnic animosity, you know, issues of safety and security, it's actually about governance. So we should look at the political goodwill in a country. When Kibaki took over in 2003, there was no law that was changed. But within a short time, we saw some directions on economic recovery. We saw what the Ministry of Planning did.
Yes.
Was like a revival of what Kibaki and Tomboya did in 1963 up to 65 on the economic recovery and focus on the session papers that were focused. It's about leadership. So EACC is because it's weak. The leadership from the board to the secretariat to the officers, I think there are people who are well intentioned and committed in the board. There are individuals, the secretaries who are well intended. But there are some rotten apples within. And you know, if you have one waru, kiazi moja tu, ambao imeoza kwa gunia, it will spoil everything. So I think it's institutional integrity. And I would agree with what senior speaker here, Kebia, said. EACC actually should be, at one time, will be a point of investigation. Now, a very important dimension, in agreement with Richard, my brother, is that when you are giving information. Why is it that people are celebrating DCI? It's because they are methodical, they are now swift, and at the Kenoti, they are very focused. But of course, backed by very strong political goodwill. Why are you celebrating Nordin Haji? I remember when he was appointed, a friend of mine, Donald Kipkorir, was like doubting, this lawyer has not practiced, so we don't know him. Others said, oh, he's the son of a senator somewhere, and they are pro-system and all that. But within a short time, if you ask even a high school student, they will tell you, among the public officers who should be celebrated and awarded on merit for performance is the Director of Public Prosecution, Mr. Nordin Haji.
Thank you.
Why is ACC revealing information about governors, about members of parliament? I think I have my guess is that they are actually using this information for extortion.
For extortion?
Extortion, yes.
Yes.
They are revealing this information. They will come and say, so and so has stolen 2.5 billion. This and that other political leader, this cabinet secretary, that other official in the county.
Thank you.
It's whatever. So that they use that information to blackmail and then to extort. But it's a business.
No. But we don't have any evidentiary documents.
It's not about evidence.
Is it a speculation or
here,
let
me tell you. Whatever else we are saying here, everything you have said here, that is in the papers, is about analysis. Analytical mind would tell you that there is no logical sense.
Why they would put the story in the paper.
Okay. All right. Let's just come, because also the shining factor that he's on.
What have they done?
Just a moment.
What have they done?
The ESCC also maybe has been taking a special umbrage with the DCI because, yes, first of all, we have Nordin Haji. We had Kirako Tobiko before, who was sleeping on the job, so to speak, because ESCC will claim we presented all these files to the DCI. And they were never prosecuted. So Nordin Haji is actually acting on what the ESCC has been doing, all the files that he has been doing and clamping down on corruption. Because now it is DCI which was making now ESCC to look like, yes, they were the sleeping dog. Isn't that the case? That has been the argument.
You see, Debarl, let me tell you how I see corruption working. And you know, you must look at corruption in all its facets. Let's not just talk about this high-level corruption. It's people sleeping on their job that is causing us all this distress.
Yes.
I'll give you one simple example, which maybe you may think is totally unrelated. The Mechuki rules. Yeah? Mechuki rules are supposed to take effect from today. And they've been saying for the last 1 week that they are going to enforce Mechuki rules. And let me ask this panel, when were the Mechuki rules suspended?
Never.
I never heard that Mechuki rules have been suspended. They've been there since 2003.
Yes.
They worked very well when the late John Mechuki was the Minister for Transport. When he went to Environment Ministry, and the ministry was given to somebody else, that is when it started slackening. That is when seatbelts became something of the past. That is when speed governors started to be tampered with. That is when accidents started happening all over the place and people dying, and as late as only a week ago,
the graffiti,
when we had the largest number of deaths. This is corruption. And anybody who is sleeping on their job, it's ridiculous to come and tell us that we don't want to know that you're enforcing Mechuki rules. When were they suspended? They should have been enforced continuously. If they are degazetted, then we know they are degazetted. But people will continue dying as long as we act, we act, impulsively. We act, what they call the knee-jerk reaction. As regards, and I'm very keen to see how the Mechuki rules are going to be, as it were, reinforced. Because for me, that's a turning point. We must know who slept on the job, who made all these deaths happen, what was the ministry doing, what were the relevant officers they are doing, and why are we being given this story. You see, the issue of ESCC, for instance, it is common knowledge that they slept on the job and were doing nothing. There was a huge outcry. His Excellency the President himself talked about it. And then he did something that had not been done before. We had a new phase at ODPP, we had a new phase at DCI. Then ESCC started waking up because now they had a threat. There was somebody who was showing that there is work that can be done and is being done properly. Now, it is this knee-jerk reactions that we must end in this country. If you are to fight corruption, it must be sustained. It cannot be done today and then tomorrow nobody is following it up and then we say it's business as usual. Now today, travelers, the commuters are going to suffer like they suffered yesterday. I remember, and I wish to remind everybody, that when John Michuki, God rest his soul, brought his rules and he said they are going to be followed, the Matatu people say they will not do it, it is not possible. People walked from Kangemi, people walked from Kibera, people walked from Buruburu to their points of work. And they supported the minister. And they said, we are going to do it because it's being done for the good of us all. We are going to walk until the Matatus understand what is being discussed. Matatus finally succumbed to the pressure and the seatbelts were put on and 14 seaters came onto the roads. And I want to tell you, if you keep statistics, the death rate on the roads went down drastically at that time. But then corruption set in, people slackened, they didn't care because they don't care. You know, we just see roadblocks, they're not stopping anybody. Yes. You just see enforcers, they are doing nothing. We had the alcohol blow the other day, it seems to have gone. You know, we don't know. Kenyan is a very confused person because they don't know exactly what is happening. What they know is what should be happening. And what should be happening is that we should be seeing people, going to prison for their sins. On the issue of the late John Gaku, I did not know him personally, but we all of us who know Nairobi know that he helped transform the city and that he worked very closely with the said John Michuki in rehabilitating the Nairobi River. Now, John Gaku is dead, yes, right? The question that you need to ask yourself, John Gaku is a very high-profile person, and that is why we know that he has died. How many people have died in prison or in their way to hospital? That's a question that should be asked so that we can see how we can be able maybe to remedy these things and then be able to stop any blame game that may start ensuing. So my point, Debarl, is that on the issue of the issues we are discussing, they are very, very important, but corruption should never be politicized. Thank you. And corruption should never be ethnicized.
No. Let's go to Congo. We'll come to you. Briefly, Congo.
Yeah, I think first, it's always dangerous to put so much pressure on these bodies that are supposed to fight corruption. Because, you know, if you follow the international best standards in fighting corruption, you know, if you look at corruption on the big road sector, you will find that the Israelis will take like 2 years to investigate a case, build evidence that is watertight. But, you know, in this country, it's like the case of Simeon Makonde. You know, people want in 7 days, name the suspect, investigate, charge him, have him jailed on the 6th day, and on the 7th day is executed. You know, you can't fight corruption that way. Corruption takes time. You need to, you know, give these agencies time to build watertight cases. And, you know, we can't spend time day in, day out criticizing these bodies. Even when we are seeing some results, we still come to these shows and say ESCC is doing nothing. I think we are not being very fair to them. We need to appreciate where there is some good signs that these bodies are working. And I want to say, for the first time, all of us agree that we are seeing some action, we are seeing some results. And you know, Debarl, the way ESCC is structured, yes, all these complaints being raised by my good friend Kabando, you know, we borrowed the legal framework we have from Australia, where the commissioners have been given powers to, you know, investigate actions of the executive down there. This issue of invasion into somebody's privacy by splashing this news in the newspapers, the commissioners have been given a mandate. If you read the act, you'll find that anybody who feels that the executive in ESCC, that's the guys who investigate these cases, have done anything that is improper, you can file a complaint to the commissioners and the commissioners can address the complaint. Finally, Debarl, I thought that the Salaries and Remuneration Commission was going to would fix this issue of disparity in salaries. You know, I don't see the logic, honestly, why an investigator at ESCC, who is a trained police officer, who has just been forwarded to ESCC, yes, should earn more than an investigator at DCI. I think that's not a fair thing, and the Salaries and Remuneration Commission is letting this country down. And I think that's what is triggering these kind of superiority fights between the DCI and the EACC. Because if a police officer, junior police officer at DCI is earning 50,000, and the one at EACC is earning 120,000, yes, then you expect to have some questions being raised from the DCI. So the Salaries and Remuneration Commission should ensure that there is fairness in terms of remuneration for people who have same professional qualifications.
Thank you. Let's wrap it up. Let's wrap it up with Shemocho.
Just two brief ones, Debarl. One is clarity of roles. The DCI, DPP, and EACC. You know, it's not that we didn't have a DCI before.
Yes.
The office has been there. What's different is that George Kinoti is doing a fantastic job. So I think we need to distinguish personalities and officers. With that regard, I think it's incumbent upon concerned institutions, maybe it's Parliament, to clarify roles and mandates, as one of my colleagues said earlier on, so that there is no overlap between DCI, DPP, and EACC. My second point is, I think we seem to focus more on criminalization. There's what the old adage that prevention is better than cure. I think we need to spend more time on prevention. How do we prevent? I think it's very sexy to talk about taking people to court, prosecuting, as my senior counsel here is talking about. For us to effectively stamp corruption, we must agree on what's the main objective. We want to stop theft of public funds, or minimize it to completely, you know, to the. Of course, we are told there's corruption even in the developed world, but it's to within manageable levels. So if we are to focus on prevention, this is why, for me, my challenge, particularly to sitting members of Parliament, can we strengthen oversight bodies? And in this particular regard, I go back to that controller of budget. Can we strengthen that office so that rather than wait for people to commit offenses and prosecute them and jail them or execute them, what do we do to prevent, to make it so difficult, next to impossible, to steal?
All right. Kabano, just briefly, then we wind up on it.
Yes. You see, I want to make 3 points very quickly.
Could you take two, please?
Yes. Yeah. Point number one, we are talking about institution. I said that within EACC, just like the other agencies, there are very well-intentioned people in the board. And also I said in the secretariat. But to tell the public that the problem that is there is because of salaries and all that, we are being simplistic and escapist. You see, let's celebrate what is being done. I personally would think that it will be a good proposal, for instance, to say specifically what Parliament can do or is doing to review the remuneration or the salary scales if there are disparities, as they say, in terms of the officers that are seconded to the agency. That is administrative law, is a labor issue, can be addressed. But we should not escape the fact and reality that EACC, generally speaking,
yes,
on judgment, by perception, people tell you DCI is doing good, DPP is doing good. You see, I have an issue with this headline. Myself, I have an issue with this headline.
The headline of the delegation?
Yes, I have an issue with this headline.
Yes. What's the issue?
The issue is, I think this is not being propelled by the reality that is happening. In this country, the agenda on fighting corruption is on course, is happening, and reading through the content, talking about agencies, clash of egos, issues of that DCI was given more money than EACC. The EACC was given, they say, about, I think, 2-point-something billion. EACC was given 2.7 billion, and that DCI was given 2.8 billion. I don't think that should be the issue in this country. The issue should be, are we getting value for the money allocated? I would say, if DCI has shown some positive progress and performance in a corruption crackdown, then we should not be concerned about the difference of 100 million or 200 million, and so on and so forth.
It's about overlapping roles. You know, why should the taxpayer be paying two concurrent institutions to spend taxpayers' money investigating the same offences concurrently? I mean, that's a misuse of our taxpayers. If we have said this mandate should be executed by EACC, and that's what the law says, then we should allow EACC to discharge that mandate. If we are not satisfied with their performance, then you disband the body. But if the law remains that they are the ones in charge, then we should not allow a situation where there is duplication of duties by different agencies for the same government.
The issue of the law, Bwana Debarl, let us not go that way. The issue of the law is being overplayed here. Even a police officer in a village in Mukoroini or in a village in Mvita can actually initiate a case and take somebody to court for bribery on the road, or a public officer demanding a chicken from a farmer. You know, so if we insist so much about the law, then we'll be telling the country that we don't have a collective moral obligation to tackle graft. If any officer is working, let that officer be merited and celebrated. Now we are complaining about DCI. When the DCI is performing.
All right, thank you.
Let us give it
briefly. Thank you. We need to move on. Could we just wind up, because it seems we can't actually get to the end of it. But let's just begin with you, Richard. And looking at what is on the front page of the Standard today, I think it has been a very heightened also a weekend as far as politics is concerned. After hosting Raila, Ruto off to Nyanza, and of course this will be Migori today. Ruto expected Migori today, even as regions MPs declare they won't attend his function. But the bigger question is the possible connection between the tour and the lunch DP hosted for Raila and Uhuru last week. And I think this is what also the Daily Nation was holding yesterday. Ruto link in, not really this one, but actually on Saturday, just to show you what it was holding for us. Right, puzzle of Wanjigi at Ruto lunch meeting. This particular lunch meeting is what they're talking about. Odinga ally Jimmy Wanjigi joins President DP and Raila for meals, sparking speculation that the three political leaders could be keen to extend the benefits of handshake just a day after Uhuru said his choice of successor will catch leaders by surprise. Is Deputy President reaching out to Nasser Bose ahead of next polls? That is a probing question. How is it changing the political tone and tenor right now? As far as everyone was saying, oh, now, you know, Raila really coming into play, or coming between Deputy President and President Uhuru Kenyatta, that one also is sort of jotting a needle, which is flying every which way as far as the political scenario is concerned. What do you think about this particular gesture, his move to Migori, and of course him inviting Raila and President Uhuru over for lunch?
I would say that without actually knowing in details on what the DP's program would have been, before the lunch, which had the president, former prime minister, and him, my honest observation is that the politics right now is as confusing to the leadership in Nyanza as to how they would welcome Ruto as it is confusing from the point of view that, if you remember what the president said, he left many people having second thoughts and having a rethink of what he was actually saying. For me, I think number one, Ruto is a very clever politician. He has decided that he will continue running around to try and keep on talking to people about his future plans in 2022. I am not sure that the people around the president are going to be very happy about that. But again, you can't stop him for the simple reason that he's saying, I am going to open government projects. My job as a principal assistant to the president is that I can actually proceed and go and hold that. Again, you see it playing back to the normal politics that we in Nyanza have always played. You saw John Mbadi basically coming out very predictably and screaming all over the place, saying he will not attend those meetings. And as far as he's concerned, he can only attend if former Prime Minister Raila gives him the okay to do that. According to me, if I was John Mbadi, I would have attended the meeting to go and see what the DP is actually doing. Number two, the mix of this whole visit takes a different dimension when you find that the host is going to be Mr. Obado. The truth is, you saw there was a by-election for the election of a senator in Migori, and it was said that Obado had actually supported the young man who was opposing Honorable Chilayako, and the young man did reasonably well. So that raised again other issues. But I think for me, what is going to happen when the DP goes to Luo Nyanza. Number one, it depends on how he carries himself. Number two, it depends on what he's going to say. If he's going to be negative in his commentaries and he attacks Prime Minister Raila Odinga, I believe that obviously when you attack Prime Minister Odinga, former Prime Minister Odinga, in his backyard, it puts you in a position where actually you immediately become disadvantaged. It's exactly the same thing. If you go to the North Rift or Rift Valley and start attacking Deputy President William Ruto, then you don't have a lot of easy welcome from the citizens. My feeling is, I saw John Bandi commenting that some of the roads were actually done during the coalition government, but those roads were not a single event. They were a continuum, and those roads will be continue being opened. And as I said, William Ruto is clever. William Ruto will scheme and plan in terms of, he knows now ODM as a weakness after the by-election in Migori.
Thank you.
All right, and I think to a large extent, he's going to test the waters. He knows that he may only get only 10% of the vote from Luo Nyanza so long as former Prime Minister Raila exists.
Right.
But 10% is a large number of votes given what is going to happen in 2022.
Thank you. Let's say from Kemi Gitura, because it seems having this particular lunch over the weekend and then having the tour today, why do you think this lunch came over the weekend? Was it maybe to change the political posture as far as reception is concerned in Migori? Now having Raila actually coming for lunch, and Guru, it seems, yes, we want to seem to be on an even keel. So was this a very providential choice of the president having this lunch over the weekend, and today is in Migori?
Well, I have absolutely no idea.
To soften the reception?
I have no idea. I was at the funeral of my very close friend and confidant, Jane Kiano, on Friday.
Yes.
And all those three, His Excellency the President, the Deputy President, and Right Honorable Raila Odinga were there. And Jimmy Wanjigi too was there. And after the funeral service, the memorial service, it's when they went for lunch. And it looked to me logical that they could go for, they went for lunch there because it's about 100 yards or meters from St. Francis Karen SK Church to the Deputy President's residence.
So this was really off the script?
For me, I think we spent too much time speculating and trying to sort out, to understand why these things are happening. What we know for sure are the issues that have happened over a period. That on 9th of March, there was a handshake between the President and Right Honorable Raila Odinga. That subsequent to that, we have what we call the bridge building initiative with the 14 people that are out there. We are still waiting and hoping to hear what they are going to say. And I'm hoping that one of the things they are going to come out with is that we need to have a referendum on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 issues. We know that there has been a kind of a tension between the Deputy President and the Right Honorable Raila Odinga since the day of the handshake. And this is politics. I think what politics is being played at the moment, we can only speculate. We do not know what was discussed at lunch. We do not know whether Deputy President's visit to Migori was planned prior to the lunch or whether it was planned during that lunchtime. We do not know. There are many things we do not know. And therefore, for me, from where I'm sitting, what I would say is there are very many things that we are going to see between now and 2020. Remember that the President was in Mount Kenya region not so long ago. That was, I think, last week. And remember that he cautioned the elected members of Parliament from Mount Kenya not to waste time discussing issues that are not helping the people that elected them, instead, when they continue engaging about 2022. And and I can tell you clearly, without fear of contradiction, that even the people they represent, myself being one of them, if you go to the Mount Kenya region, the electorate is complaining. Why did we elect these people? They are every weekend, we don't see them here. They are all over the place in other parts of the country. They are talking about development in other places. They are going to open projects in other places, but you don't see them here. We cannot reach them to ask them why we are having problems where I am elected, where I am a voter, for instance, and other places. So all these things are going to come. I keep saying that Wanjiko isn't stupid. Wanjiko is also analyzing these situations the way we are analyzing them here. And she wants to understand, why did I elect so-and-so if I cannot find him at the functions here where he's supposed to be over the weekends? He's not discussing CDF. CDF is one of the biggest, and they call it NGCDF now. It's one of the biggest engines of development in the constituencies now. And it's got millions of shillings. When first of all I became a member of parliament in 2002, 2003, CDF was 6 million shillings. It then went incrementally. Now it is more than 100 million shillings per year per constituency. That's a lot of money that can be used to forge development in any constituency. Now, if you are not going around your constituency, having public hearings, having public participation, to know what needs to be done with that 100 million shillings. Instead, you are tangering going all over the place, in other places, and you are not concentrating on what you should be doing. Who are you representing? Who are you representing? Right. So these are questions, Debarl. Yes. These are questions, Debarl, that we must ask and answer.
Thank you.
Because that is why we vote. That is why we elect leaders.
All right. He says that, even as we're winding up, he says that, of course, this is too much speculation. Why, if they came from a funeral service, and of course they decided to have lunch, this is just, of course, a noble gesture that anyone will do. But we have to remember at the end of the day that politics is all about perception, right? How we perceive things is how also political sphere is shaped. What do you think, Okongo Mogeni?
You know, on Saturday, I was visiting a constituency in KCSE County, in Machoge, and I stopped in a shopping center called Ogembo, and I just interacted with the border riders. And when I bought the newspaper, I asked them, I mean, what do you take of this photo?
The photo? The
photo, you know, on Saturday's newspaper. And you know, they told me, you know, these two are together, but this one is alone, you know. So, I mean, as you say, perception is everything. I think for Deputy President William Ruto, for him, I think to have invited these two for lunch is a big score for him. Because I think he wants to send the message that I'm still a key player in the Kenyan politics. And somebody has just put it here, is somebody you cannot underrate. And I'm telling you, Debarl, the tours the DP is making across the country is not to launch development projects. He's on a campaign trail. Eyes on the ball is looking at 2022. If you looked at what was happening in Western Kenya yesterday, it was pure campaign. And I think if you are an opponent of Ruto, you'll be lying to yourself if you sat back and said Ruto is doing nothing in terms of touring regions. In Migori today, he knows very well that there is some political force there in the name of Obado who does not agree with the former Prime Minister Raila Odinga, and he wants to make some political capital of it. He knows that in the neighborhood there are two constituencies from Kuria who don't necessarily vote with Raila Odinga's party. And he's going there to just continue the trajectory that, look, I'm the best suitable candidate for 2022. I think if you are a political analyst, if we're not careful, we're gonna play catch-up game with William Ruto. I think what the people want to make a strong statement 2022 presidential race need to do is to respond quickly to this. I don't know whether to call them tanga, the way Kembi Gitula said.
I didn't call them. I mean, that's what they,
I mean, somebody, because when he's touring a region like Western, the statement he made yesterday, I think you need to be there next weekend and also give your own view. Tell the public that this new constitution does not talk about people coming to tell you these are the goods we'll give you if you support us. Development, finally, Debarl, development to all regions of this country is on what my honorable member of parliament is able to do at the National Assembly. It's not what somebody will come and tell you in a political rally.
Thank you. Right.
The deputy president is touring my region. I hope you give me sufficient time. And it's not only in Migori. I think last night he was in Homa Bay, and he's again going to be in Homa Bay before he proceeds to Migori. He's not just in Nyanza, he's in what we call Lue Nyanza, because he's been to other parts of Nyanza. But I think it's, and on this platform, have challenged the deputy president. He's going around inspecting projects. Why is he not going to Nyanza, particularly Lue Nyanza? So for me, I'm very delighted that the deputy president is in my region, what some may call Southern Nyanza. But I would be more concerned about the content of his visit. We were just reading in one of the papers how a dual carriageway is being done in some part of the country, and I'm asking, for heaven's sake, even before we do a dual carriageway to Malaba and Busia and so on, where it's so sorely needed. You know, I would be very comfortable if when the DP or the Excellency President goes around the country, it's commensurate the kind of development, and in this the kind of development of projects that are being unveiled. In this regard, I must take issue with members from a particular part of the country who are telling us about 60%, and I would want to remind them of what
Mention them.
one Lukoye Atuoli has written in yesterday's Nation. It's entitled, "Third Term Ideas Must Be Nipped in the Bud." And Atuoli ends with a single sole statement that don't say you are never won, you weren't want. That's the thinking, and many people who support the handshake, and I'm one of them. There is that assumption that we're going to have a third term through the back door. I think I would want to trust the president's instincts in this regard. He played very good politics. We don't know whether it's the DP who invited them or whoever. Other media are saying that the president asked the DP, "We are passing by with my brother Raila." So if at all is the president who did it,
Thank you.
It would be very smart. That was what we need to encourage. We must recognize that the handshake was meant to bring the country together. We need to be true to it. By bringing the country together, we must bring the handshake team and the Tanga Team. All the Kenyans need to be brought together. That's what, at the end of the day, will give us the better Kenya we want.
Thank you, Dr. Ashok. Okay, we're winding up, and we begin with you, Kabano, briefly. 30 seconds, sir.
The fact that DP hosted the president and the former prime minister is a good thing, and we should celebrate that in the spirit of reconciliation.
Sure.
He hosted them in the official residence of the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya. So we are reading too much ado about nothing, and I think sometimes we get captivated by infertile imaginations and presumptions that something should not happen. The fact that Jimmy Wajigi was in the lunch, who doesn't know that Jimmy is afraid to Kalonzo, is afraid to Uhuru, is afraid to Ruto and Raila Odinga. So friends getting together is a positive thing, and I think should be encouraged. I'm personally very happy that the Deputy President and the Prime Minister had that show of, friendship. But the point that Oshoda has raised. No. The point that Oshoda has raised.
We are winding up.
This question of trying to condemn communities, only when people of Central Kenya meet.
30 seconds.
When people of Central Kenya meet, you want to attack them.
Thank you.
They have a right, like other parts of the country,
Thank you, sir.
to meet, talk about the interests of their community.
Thank you, sir.
There's Kikuyu phobia. Must stop.
Thank
We
you.
must appreciate everybody because we are one country.
Kemi Gitura, 30 seconds. We're winding up.
Well, I think what I would like to say is this, that we have 600,000 young Kenyans sitting their KCSE exams starting today. And I know how trying it can be. They've spent so many years in school and they want to excel. I want to take this opportunity to wish them the very best and to tell them that there is life after exams. And even as they sit them today, I want to tell them that what they have learned cannot go to waste, and hope that they are going to get the results that they seek. Thank you very much.
Richard Onyonka, briefly, 30 seconds.
I think, Debarl, for me, my message would be very simple. I agree with what Ambassador Gitura has said. Ambassador Mina has done an excellent job. The politics of Kenya right now, my gut feeling tells me it's going to be a wait-and-see attitude, because DP Ruto will be running around selling himself. But I think there is the confusion between whether we now need to engage on issues of the referendum, whether we need to start discussing whether we need a presidential system or parliamentary system.
Okongo Mogini, your final remarks?
Yes, mine really is to wish success to the Form 4 candidates who are sitting for the exams. And I hope, just as my good friend Kemi Gitura said, it's not the end of the world. Let them learn that it's hard work that pays and not shortcuts. I wish them success.
Thank you very much. Finally, Dr. Shemochodo.
The ball that my good brother KK is getting mad means there are divides that are so deep. Maybe I would refer to the story also by Kwendo Panga on yesterday's paper. He says we need a national conversation. I think we truly need to have that, because when MPs, meeting is not bad, but when they meet and say 60% of the GDP, people start asking questions. But my last one is to compliment what we saw in New York and compliment Brand Kenya, KTB, KQ. It was a fantastic show to Lady Keitany.
Thank you. Thank you very much, our panelists this morning, for that insightful conversation we've had this morning. And there's a lot to cover, but we haven't this morning. But I thank God for what we've covered this morning. Thank you so very much for your valued company as well. Our viewers, we thank you. And up next is Living With Us.